What's up, people of the internet? My name is Dabacap, and we have a ton of brand new artifact cards to go over today, so let's dive right in. Alright, so we have two new creep satyr cards. First, we're going to check out the Satyr Magician. This is a 5 mana blue card with 2 attack and 5 health, but what makes this card interesting is its ability. It has a 1-turn cooldown ability that completely restores your lane's mana, meaning you can do that every single time you get to that lane. Now, it's awesome that this is in blue because blue is the color that has really big, heavy hitting spells. So theoretically, this is the color that will benefit the most from having your mana replenished potentially every single turn. So with such poor stats at 5 mana, it's very obvious that the power of this card is going to rely entirely on its deck's ability to create some sort of combo effect. And at the start of the game, I think combo decks are going to be a little bit weak because they're just fundamentally isn't enough cards to create very powerful combos. So at game launch, I feel like Satyr Magician is not going to be a very popular card. People might experiment with it a bit, but for the most part, I don't think there's going to be enough cards to really support this mana replenishing mechanic. That being said, a couple of sets down the line, I feel like this card could really be a staple of blue combo decks. But more importantly, this card is starting to reveal to us that blue likes to play around with mana. I mean, different colors play around with mana in different ways. Black likes to shut down mana with like Arcane Censure. Green likes to buff mana with Celemene's Favor, but blue seems to like to restore mana, like you gain mana back after you spent it, much like Crystal Maiden's passive. So I think the basic idea with blue is that you cast a big spell, get some or all of your mana back, and then you cast a second big spell for very huge dramatic turns to completely swing a board state. I can imagine making it to turn 7 with this on the board. Throw down Eclipse or Echo Slam to completely wipe your current lane, hit this ability to replenish all your mana, then cast Thunder God's Wrath to kill off all the heroes in the other lanes. So definitely this card has a lot of potential, but I'd be very surprised if it's a staple in blue decks at launch. Of course, I could be wrong. Combo might be stronger than we think. We'll have to see. Next up, we have the Cursed Satyr, a 5 mana red creep card with 6 attack, 6 health, and it's got a very unique passive. After each combat phase, you summon a zombie, just a small 2/2 black zombie, for your opponent. Now, unfortunately, because of the way Artifact works, I feel like this is not going to be a very good card because of just the way that things spawn into the lanes. One of the very important rules of Artifact is that whenever a unit spawns on the board, if there's an empty slot in front of a card, it has to go in front of that unit. So I can imagine where you put a Cursed Satyr down on the board. Across from it is a melee creep. The two smack into each other. Of course, the Cursed Satyr kills off the melee creep, so it's gone. Then, because of the card effect, it spawns a zombie. But because you have just cleared a slot in front of this, a zombie spawns in front of it, and the next turn you kill off the zombie, and another zombie spawns in front of it. That's very, very possible with this card, because every time it kills something, there's a chance that the zombie will spawn right in front of it. So really, I don't think this card is going to be that strong because its built-in weakness is a direct counter to the card, which makes it kind of awkward to play. I could sort of see playing it if you have a deck that's very good at dealing a little bit of damage here and there. Maybe if you've got Grazing Shots, maybe if you have Keenfolk Musket, or if you've got, AoE spells like Tower Barrage, you can very easily play this, get the zombie, and then just take out the zombie in the following rounds, not being a super big deal. However, it's important to note that there are going to be some decks that will benefit tremendously from that 2/2 zombie. Sure, it's a 2/2 zombie now, but what if it's next to Lycan? Well, then it's a 4/2 zombie. What if they play Vul Martyr? Well, then it'll be a 3/3 zombie. So you got to be kind of careful with this card. I do in general like cards that have high risk, high reward. In this case, this card has very high stats, but it's got the penalty of the zombie. So that's a cool effect, but just in general, I'm not sure that this balance of mechanics will make this card very useful. Of course, it is worth mentioning that you can potentially make that zombie a good thing for you. We don't know of many cards that benefit you from having a lot of things on the enemy board. I think the only one that we know of at the moment is Echo Slam. If you have an enemy zombie on the board, that will add 1 damage to all units when you cast Echo Slam. The issue is you can't really curse Satyr and then Echo Slam because it's just too much mana all in one turn. Unless, of course, you have the other Satyr, Satyr Magician. So in general, these Satyr cards are not looking super strong. When you're building your decks, I think it would behoove you to look at other options. All right, following the theme of a high risk, high reward card, we have Diabolic Revelation. And on this card, we have Kana, the partially revealed blue hero that we're kind of waiting to see more of. So this is a 1 mana blue spell that deals 2 damage to all of your units in all of your lanes, and then draws 2 cards. So right off the bat, I don't think that this is a very strong card. The issue with it is that if you play it really early, it might sort of snowball into a gold advantage, because obviously if you hit all of your creep with 2 damage, then they're going to die to the next melee creep that hits them. It's going to soften up your heroes, and it might help the enemy build up a little bit of early gold and then get some early items and then snowball and run away with the game. Especially if they're playing, red heroes who really benefit from having powerful items on them. And sure, the 2 card draw is nice, but we already have plenty of other card draw options in blue. For example, Foresight. And I'm really not sure if we're better off playing Diabolic Revelation instead of Foresight. One of the cool things about Artifact is that you have 3 lanes of mana. So finding 4 spare mana to cast Foresight is not that difficult to do. It's very doable. So I'm not sure if the 3 mana cost reduction in Diabolic Revelation is really going to be worth it. I could sort of see it being useful in super aggro decks that want to go really fast because you have to make the most out of your mana. But then at that point I kind of have to wonder, why are you playing blue? Because blue is so slow. But maybe the blue-black archetype that we saw at PAX is better than we're giving it credit for. Throw out Dimensional Portal, Disciple of Nevermore, and then quickly refresh your cards with Diabolic Revelation and then just overwhelm your opponents. That tends to be the issue with aggro decks, is that they run out of steam, they draw fewer cards in the late game, and the cards that they do draw tend to be weaker. So maybe Diabolic Revelation could be kind of useful in those faster, more aggressive blue double color decks like blue black or blue, I don't know, green maybe could do some sort of zoo effect. I'm not sure, we'll have to see once it starts. So maybe you can fit into those, but I think for the most part, especially for control blue decks, you're better off going with Foresight. One thing I will mention, of course, is that this damage is not piercing, meaning that if you don't have a lot of creatures and the heroes that you do have a lot of armor, for example a blue-red deck, you've got cards like Axe, Bristleback, then your heroes might not even feel Diabolic Revelation because they just tank the damage. And one more thing, it's quite fitting that they put Kana on this card's artwork, because Kana's premier spell allows you to summon 1 Hound of War for each damaged unit. Unfortunately, we don't yet know what Hounds of War do, but it's more than likely the case that the more damage units you have on the field, the more powerful this card will be. So I think there's going to be a lot of strong synergy there between these 2 Kana themed cards. And last but not least, we have Omni Knight. Now, Omni Knight has actually been revealed before. We saw its basic card and we saw its premier card, but we have not seen its ability. Its ability was revealed today. So Omni Knight is a 5/12 green hero. Its premier card is All Seeing One's Favor for 4 mana, and it modifies a green creature with +2 regeneration. I'll get into regeneration in just a second. And its ability is Purification. On a 2-turn cooldown, it will heal a unit for 3. So obviously Omni Knight is built to be a tanky support green hero designed to help your lane survive and soak up lots and lots of damage. Omni Knight has tons of health and a pretty sizable attack, and along with his self-heal, this guy's going to be able to tank a ton of damage. I feel like he's going to be one of the brawlier green heroes. It tends to be the case that green heroes like to have lots of health and kind of lower attack, but Omni Knight actually has, from what we've seen, one of the best green bodies in the game. So I think he's going to be a staple in slower green decks that want to slow down the game and survive until the late game, when they can play things like Thunderhide Pact. His ability is okay, it's not bad. 3 health, he's probably going to be hitting that with heroes mostly. I could see sometimes using it on a creep to maybe keep the creep alive for 1 more turn. But for the most part, I think you're probably going to mostly use it on other heroes or maybe Omni Knight himself, because you've got to have a massive health pool to make it even worthwhile. I mean, even if you do heal a melee creep from 2 health up to 4 health, there's a good chance that some other effect like Echo Slam could just wipe it out the board. So for the most part, you're going to be healing Omni Knight and other heroes. And now let's move into regeneration. Regeneration is kind of like block, except it's better in some situations and worse in the others. Alright, here's how regeneration works. If a unit has regeneration, then when it attacks in the combat phase, at the same time that it deals damage, it also heals that amount. So let's take this card for example. You modify, we'll say Omni Knight with +2 regeneration. We'll say for the sake of argument that this Omni Knight has 1 health. He's up against a melee creep. Omni Knight at 1 health, melee creep at 2 attack. They attack each other. At that point, the melee creep will deal 2 damage to Omni Knight, and Omni Knight will also heal 2 damage, which effectively makes it function just like block. So Omni Knight will survive the encounter, he'll kill off the melee creep, and he'll be left with just 1 health. Now, if Omni Knight hits a tower and there is nothing blocking him, then that regeneration turns into a heal. So he would heal that 2 and go from 1 health to 3 health. So in that way, it's objectively better than block because in addition to functioning like block, it also heals you up if you don't take any damage. Or, for example, if you only took 1 damage from an attack, then 1 regeneration will block the damage and the remaining 1 regeneration would go into healing. However, it's not exactly better than block in all situations because this regeneration only triggers in the combat phase. So for example, this regeneration isn't going to help you at all if you get hit by something like grazing shot. All those non-piercing damage spells and abilities, if they hit you, then the regeneration just isn't going to matter. Unfortunately, this is a combat only ability. So is regeneration better than block? Is it worse than block? Yes and no, it just depends on the situation. If you're mostly going to be taking damage in combat, then obviously regeneration is better than block. But if you're going to be hit with a lot of spells, then block is much better than regeneration. So overall, I like Omni Knight. He's one of the tougher, brawlier, combat-focused green cards. He's definitely all about surviving, keeping your guys alive, and with a pretty decent body, he can trade with, I think, even a lot of red heroes. Alright, so that's the card reveals for the past 24 hours. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you think of Omni Knight? Is he good? Personally, I think he's got a lot of potential because he's so niche. If you want a green deck that slows things down, if you want to have a tough defensive lineup in order to make it to the late game, I could see Omni Knight being super popular just because he's so defensive, so good at healing, so good at staying alive, and so good at healing his allies. The 2 satyrs, not so much. I think they're a little bit weak. Not my favorite cards revealed so far, that's for sure. Then we've got Diabolic Revelation. I think it's got some potential in aggro decks, but for the most part, I think people are better off going with Foresight. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Dabacab out.